So I'm the founder and curator of dotConferences. Can you raise your hand if you've been to a dotConference before? Yes, some of you. Okay. So for those who haven't, this is what it looks like. It's a series of developer conferences in Paris, and we've been pretty much inspired by TED. I'm sure you know TED or TEDx. We kind of took the format of TED, which is 18-minute talks, beautiful venues, highly known speakers, like form and content at the same time, and we tried to apply it to developer conferences and developer content. Um, and so this is the story of how we went for it and how we failed along the way. And I guess also what you should know is it's compared to what Liam just said, this will be less about how to build a business, because this isn't really a business, at least for me. I'm just spending 20% of my time on dotConferences, so it's more about how a side project can become a little more than a side project. So it will be less about building a business and maybe more specific to events. But so let's go back to 2012. I was an organizer of TEDx Paris at the time, and I had this idea: let's experiment with the same format but with technical content. And this is how we came to our first conference. It was about JavaScript, because that was what I was familiar with at the time, and it turned out to be a big success. I think we got lucky. There wasn't any big JavaScript conference at the time in France, so we were kind of the first. So the largest was an easy, an easy thing to be. We got amazing speakers that came. We got many people. Everybody loved the format, so we were off to a good start. And so after that pass, we said, okay, let's do more. Let's do. We know we can do a big event that works well on JavaScript. So why not try to do one on backend programming? And so we brainstormed a bit. Okay, back in 2012, we were talking a lot about the cloud still. So let's do CloudConf. All right. We had also amazing speakers. Kind of lucky there. We had Hadoop, OpenStack, Elasticsearch. Many people that you wish you had if you do a backend conference. But then it turned out to be quite a failure at the beginning. It just wasn't selling very well. We had sold 500 tickets for the first .js, and there we were at maybe 3 months before the event. We only had sold 100. And that was going to be a problem, because I was personally bankrolling the event at that time. So we clearly had a crisis on our hands, and so we tried to think about what we were doing wrong. One thing worked very well. We thought we were doing this one the same way, and just didn't work at the time. So we just went out and talked to people. So to the people that we thought should be at this event. Why haven't you bought your ticket yet? Don't you like it? Blah blah blah. And so what we got was really a good learning experience, and still to this day we think about it. They told us that first the name, what is that CloudConf, right? We just did .js. That was a pretty good name. We had the we had a good logo there, I guess. And then we switch, and we kind of remove what made some of what made the first event work. And if you're a developer, you don't like the word cloud, right? It's marketing bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. Sorry for Algolia. They're in the cloud as well, I guess, but that just doesn't work that well for developers. And I guess they don't talk about the cloud, on their marketing stuff, and that's good. So we made a mistake, not being mindful of our audience, not caring, and also I guess not thinking about the brand, right? Because if you're building an event, people are kind of trusting you, to do good events. And if you are doing a new brand for each event and there's no link between them, you have to build that trust every time from zero. And so that's how we thought. And okay, so .js, we call that because of the file extension for JavaScript files, but there's no file for the cloud, so we can't call it .cloud, right? And we also had the founder of .cloud at the conference, which turned out to be Docker. So just didn't work out. But after I don't know how many days, we just had a good idea, and we called it dotScale. Because what do developers want? They want to make their backend scale, and even if the topic of the conference was wider than just scalability, it was one thing that resonated very well with developers, that talked to them, they understood, that was connected to the brand. And I think 2 weeks after we changed the name of the conference, we had already sold 100 more tickets, and we sold out the conference after that. So that was really about being mindful of the power of a brand. The brand is everything. Don't mess with it. Don't change the logo. Communicate well with people, and then be mindful of your audience. What do they want? What words do they use? How will they understand what you're doing? So that second event turned out quite okay. So okay, let's do a third. That was 2013, and so we brainstormed what do we want to do, what seems exciting at the time. Let's do Ruby. Ruby is a cool new language. So that was the third conference that we did. Again, very lucky with the speakers. We had the top speakers that you could hope for, at a Ruby conference, really. And the event went kind of okay. And when we collected the feedback, we saw that people were, yeah, it was a good event. And so that's when we began thinking about what are we doing, right? Are we doing events that people kind of like, or do we want to do exciting events where people want to come back the year afterwards, right? Because we clearly wanted to do yearly events, so yeah, you have to keep people coming and have something new to tell them. And when we debriefed that event, we saw that clearly we didn't want to do it again, at least not yet. And that was really really important to tell us, what were our criteria, to choose a language, to choose a topic, to do a conference. Because we may be dumb, or I may be dumb, but I hadn't actually thought about it. Let's do a backend conference, let's do a Ruby conference, and I hadn't spent the time to ask myself, what, with the format that we have, what will work, what kind of topics and communities will work. And we thought long and hard after this conference, and we decided that we needed three things in order to make an event like our work. The first thing we needed was an active and passionate community. Obviously, you need people to come at the conference and be involved. And I think that was the case for Ruby. There are lots of people that were still doing Ruby at the time. But the second thing was a reactive commercial ecosystem. The format of events we do in theaters, we pay for lunch, we pay for many things, are quite expensive. And if we didn't have, high profile partners, you may have seen for the first .js, we had Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. And there, so, okay, I love Drivey, I love all the other brands, but still, it was a level below. We didn't even have a gold partner. The top we had was a silver partner. So that clearly was a red flag, and was telling us, that the ecosystem wasn't really ready, to support and to invest in a Ruby event in Paris. And then the last thing was, the third thing is that we want to have speakers, with something new to say on stage. Ruby is a very old language, and what we saw at the conference is that actually very few speakers talked about Ruby. They wanted to talk, about how to develop, how to be a good developer, anything else but Ruby, which also was a big signal to see that maybe too much had already been said about Ruby. It wasn't evolving fast enough. And so for the next language we picked in the following years, we picked Swift, which Apple's language, which was very new at the time. And there was, even if the community was very small, the first time we did the .Swift, very few people were actually doing their apps in Swift. But there was many things to say. It was a pretty young language. It was quite controversial at the time. It was fresh, and so that made for a very good conference because people were interested. Partners were also interested because for them it was a big challenge, and there was many things to say. So those kind of three pillars: the community, the commercial ecosystem, and the speaker, and kind of having things to say, became really our guiding principles on how to decide. And to this day, they haven't failed us yet. So that failure was really instrumental. And so next, we began to be quite happy, with what we were doing, and I guess we had the same, intuition than Liam. Let's just build an empire, right? Like let's build a media empire. Let's build products. Let's go big. And we decided to build our first product, and the first product we built was dotJobs, which also was, I guess that's the recurring theme, but which also was, a way to kind of, I guess, monetize our audience, or to at least, to connect companies and people who are looking for jobs. And I guess to go back to what Liam said, it was little risk and little success. We were reasonably successful with the few resources we spent building it. We had companies like Criteo, BlaBlaCar, Gandhi, and I think it was 20 of them at launch, paying for the service. So clearly there was a path forward. It makes sense, when you build events, to attach job listing. And then we realized, while we were building it, that just we weren't having fun. We had lots of fun when building events, when inviting people. When doing events is, high adrenaline thing to do, but building a job board is not high adrenaline at all. It's pretty boring. It relies on different skills, I guess, which we seem to have some of them, but clearly we didn't enjoy that much. And so that's when we really ask ourselves, who are we? Like, what do we want to do with this company? And I think that's when we decided, that we were fine just doing events. As long as we are building the best events, the best developer events that Paris has ever seen. I mean, that's good for me, at least. I don't have more ambition than that in this area, and that's fine. And I think you can go around and raise millions and be very successful, and that's great if you have the energy and the ambition. But you can also build, very small businesses that make you happy, that are sustainable. Now we are 4 employees for dotConferences. We don't expect to grow much bigger, but we are having fun, and we like who we are, and I'm spending 80% of my time on another business. That's also fun. We raise money from VCs, and that's 2 different things. But knowing who you are and what you want to do for a project can really go a long way. Just thinking about it, right? Because most of the time you just launch a side project and you don't think about it. You don't spend the time. What am I doing, right? And so spending that time, and by failing, thinking about it really made us, happy about what we are, about what we want to do, and enjoying life. that's the best. And so another kind of mistake we made in the same vein was hiring. Events are not widely profitable, and if you don't lose money, you're pretty happy. So you kind of tend to hire interns, right? Like to do many small tasks, contacting people, dealing with logistics, and so on. And for most of 2014, we had 3 or 4 interns, and it turned out really to be catastrophic. I can't say it another way. Some of them, quit. Some of them sent emails to our database. Some of them, So we had so many issues that we spent more time managing interns than doing what we liked, which was doing events. And so we just stopped doing interns, and we haven't had an intern since 2014. And we are happy, clearly understaffed, chronically understaffed, but highly efficient, because we are all, really efficient at what we do. Everyone is in her or his place, and we are much happier that way. We won't scale again a lot, but I think happiness is a better goal. So I guess that's the main lessons. I can skip, on the rest very fast, on maybe the smaller mistakes that we did. There's a thing called unisex t-shirts. So some people think they exist, some people don't think they exist, and the people who don't think they exist will be very angry when you have unisex t-shirts at your conference. So that's one thing to know. So don't buy unisex t-shirts. And then, we didn't have HTTPS on our website. Even if we did .security, we didn't bother with HTTPS until last year. That was kind of bad. I can't say we lost things because of that, but I feel bad about it. So that may be a failure. Wi-Fi is, continuously failing at the events. Maybe someday we'll get it right. Because we're understaffed, we miss so many emails. I'm sorry if some of yours are still in my inbox. Again, I don't have a solution to that, and I'm sure we'll do many more mistakes along the way. That's about it. Thank you very much. If you have questions, yes, Star Wars.
Thank you. My question is, with your first major failure with the cloud conference, how do you get feedback from people, and especially the people who don't show to buy tickets and so on?
Yeah. So what we did, we knew quite a lot of people in Paris and in the startups, because we didn't start from scratch. I've been an entrepreneur for a few years before, so we know people, and so we just called people that we think should have been interested. And so why are you not there, right? So it's defining who's your target audience and just going relentlessly after them and asking
Okay,
them why.
so it's just personal networking and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
So you say this is a side project that you do like 20%. What do you do with the other 80%?
Right.
Like what's your day job, so to speak?
My other company is called Pricing Assistant. So it's we are 20 people. It's a VC, and for there we have a lot of ambition, and we help retailers optimize their prices depending on their competition. So we crawl the web. It's basically a scraping startup, and deliver reports and optimizations for their prices.
Cool, thanks.
Tim.
Thank you. You said you're spending 20% of your time, but you had 4 employees. Are they all spending 20% of their time, or are they working full time on the dotConferences?
No, the rest are full time, yeah. But it's really like a kind of a family business. You know, I hired my little brother. The other one is my friend, and so it's really about being small but the right people and efficient. And yeah, like you kind of need people full time for logistics, for partnerships. I have the good spot because my job is basically inviting speakers and trying to learn from the mistakes, I guess. So that I can do part time, but yes.
And can you tell us a bit more about dot security? Because it was the first edition last year, is that a failure? Is that a success? How will you continue it?
Right. Yeah. So the next conferences we are doing are .go on November 6th, .css, .js early November, early December, and then we are doing .swift, .ai, .scale in 2019. And indeed, the security is not in the list. We did for the second time last year, and for this one, it's not yet rated as a failure because it was pretty successful, and security is obviously a big topic. For that, I think it was more the mistake of having too much on our hands. Like doing seven events a year with 4 people was clearly too crazy. So it's more about prioritizing. I'm pretty sure it will come back, but maybe at another time in the year.
Okay.
But no, but I mean, it's hard also, to stop doing things even if they are not straight failures, right? Like sometimes the distinction between a success, a semi-success, and a failure is very thin. So not always sure. And it will also, I guess, depend on how much people keep asking for it, right?
In your opinion, what are the parts of your dotConference business that are fail-proof, and why? How do you analyze it? And which ones are maybe not fail-proof yet? And how do you handle this kind of risk?
So I think what is fail-proof, just like Liam said, are the relationships, the trust of the audience. People kind of trust us to do high quality events. We do things like we don't announce the topics of our speakers. We don't even announce the order of our speakers at the conference. And so there's a really high degree of trust when people come, because basically they sit down in the room and they have no idea what's going to be next on the stage, right? And that's kind of creates a different relationship and different atmosphere in the events that I think as is kind of shocking for some people, or, but I think has a lot of value, because that trust doesn't disappear, right away. It can disappear if you make high mistakes, like if we have commercial speakers on the stage, if we have continuously bad experiences or stuff like that. But I think having a brand that's strong, with the trust from people and good relationships with the speakers and the partners, I can see how that can be undone, like by a mistake, or by time, other than maybe neglect, over time. The other thing that can happen, and that almost killed us last year actually, was that we were doing our largest event yet, was dotJS 2016, and we were switching venues. We are going to Théâtre Mogador, because we were planning to be 1,200, and our previous venue couldn't handle that. So we planned everything. We spent, changing venues is very hard for an event that size. So we spent many months doing that, and then just 2 months before the conference, the venue burned down. The Théâtre Mogador, if you've seen, it just opened a few months back, but it burned down. So conference cancelled, and we were, it's our biggest event, and we were relying on that, just to pay our full-time employees. And so there we clearly, almost died and almost, shut down the lights. But we found another venue, and in 2 months we didn't sleep. We transferred everything, and it turned out to be a good success. And we're actually doing the next dotJS in that very same venue, because it turned out people like it even more than theaters at that scale. But I think what can kill us is terrorism in Paris. That's very scary for us. Like if we have if you have something happening, the day before or the week before the conference, many cancellations, speakers that don't come because they are scared. That can clearly kill us, I think. Having like high-profile scandals, there was, high scandal at PyCon, called Donglegate, where people got fired because they did sexist remark in the audience, or things that basically go very wrong, that if we don't manage it the right way when they happen, that can kill us as well. So I'm more afraid of those kind of things than like something coming slowly. Thank you very much.